Kia ora everyone, welcome and good evening to those of us in New Zealand. Boker tov lכל הצופים Israel. My name is Corinne and I'm excited to welcome you to the second monthly Tech Innovators Exchange on behalf of the New Zealand Israel Innovation Hub. Before we introduce our guest for today, Judith Collins, I'd like to pass on to Josh Brown, who's the founder of the New Zealand Israel Innovation Hub, to tell us a bit about the organization and then a quick word from our sponsor. Take it away, Josh.
Thanks a lot, Corinne. Okay, so the New Zealand Israel Innovation Hub facilitates collaboration, communication, and enterprise between New Zealand and Israel. I guess you could say we take on a business council role because we advocate for trade in both directions. We're very much about the Israeli-New Zealand connection, but I have to say that we're also very much about getting behind New Zealand's own tech transformation and maybe bringing back what's worked in Israel and apply them to the New Zealand context and its needs. And I just also wanted to let everybody know about our upcoming delegation to Israel coming up on the 15th of November. It's being led by Simon Bridges, former, I don't know, we seem to be engaging National Party or former National Party MPs, but we've got Simon Bridges leading the delegation to Israel during that trip, and will also be stopping by the UAE as well. It will focus on the Israeli startup nation and applying and a look at that from a very top-down, high-level look at the ecosystem. And then hopefully, be definitely something worth checking out. Great to have you. Great to have everybody participating today.
Thank you, Josh. And now, so Dennis Simonov from Index Recruitment is our sponsor today. So just thought we'll give you a few minutes to tell us a bit about what you do.
Thank you, Corinne. Well, Index Recruitment was established in January 2022 to address the need in New Zealand for a recruitment agency run by recruiters with technical and scientific expertise. We're New Zealand's only recruitment agency run by scientists. What makes us unique is that we're PhD level qualified scientists with expertise in academic, clinical, commercial, and industrial research. But we're also successful recruiters who have previously placed technology professionals into some of New Zealand's most well-known private and government organizations. What makes us stand out as recruiters is that we're still practicing scientists and members of scientific and technical professional networks, which gives us access to candidates to whom traditional recruitment agencies often do not have access to. Our clients can also be confident that we will understand the technical details of the job brief and applicants' backgrounds. We can precisely understand where each particular candidate and their unique set of skills fit. We do not simply tick boxes when we hear key technical words. Daily, we speak with numerous technical specialists to have a real-life picture of what everyone is doing and who is available. And that is really important. In today's climate, the best candidates are often not actively looking for new opportunities, but they become interested in them when a person with a similar technical background approaches them and presents a relevant opportunity. We're also members of international organizations and chambers of commerce, which allow us to access international specialists and top professionals in business and technology. As a recruitment company, we source talent for technology and manufacturing companies at every level of their business, from machine operators to scientists, engineers, heads of research, and CEOs. Our multiple level approach to candidate sourcing includes targeted advertising, mining our custom database, reaching out to professional networks, and all that ensures that our clients are always presented with the best candidates available in the market. We're very flexible in our approach to recruitment and to dealing with candidates and clients, and we're always happy to discuss any recruitment or employment needs you may have. Talk to us today or whenever you're next looking for a job or a technical specialist.
Thank you, Dennis. That's great. Right, so a little bit about how we're going to run today. Thank you, Judith. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction in a minute, but it's always very brave, in my opinion, to agree to an AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything. The way we're going to run it is everyone's gonna stay muted, but if you can put your questions in the chat, and we've got both Joss and Chad here that are going to be monitoring that, and we'll be asking your questions as they come on. We've got a few of our own as well. So just to introduce Judith, so the Honourable Judith Collins is a New Zealand Constituency Member of Parliament, has been since 2002. Her constituency is Papakura and is located in Auckland. She is the New Zealand National Party spokesperson for science, innovation and technology, which is why we're really interested in having you here. And foreign direct investment, land information and digitising government. Judith served as the leader of the opposition and leader of the New Zealand National Party from July 2020 to November 2021, and served as a senior cabinet member in the governments led by Sir John Key and Sir Bill English. Welcome, Judith.
Well, thanks very much for having me this evening, and look forward to an interesting discussion.
Thank you. If so just there was a very brief introduction that I made. The information I had was so much more. Is there anything else that you feel you'd like to share around your background and experience that you think would be relevant for us before we start?
Well, yes, as a lawyer, I still have a practicing certificate. I'm a lawyer, but also I was in business and public company director and chair before I came into politics. But what I've seen over the years is the enormous efforts in tech, but the huge opportunities. So it's naturally something that I'm interested in. Also, it's I think I'm the only person in Parliament with a technology portfolio. And I invented the portfolio when I was the leader of the National Party, because I could see that it was the only way to grow the economy, was actually to take advantage of our natural advantages and expertise in tech and science. So that's just a little bit different. Oh, and my son's a software developer, so he obviously started me thinking about these things a long time ago.
Yeah, one of my questions was the fact that, because I've listened to some of your interviews and you're obviously very passionate about technology, is something that's that you've chosen to really get involved in. So I was really interested to sort of hear what it was about technology that you think makes such a big difference, and what it was that sparked your interest.
Right. Okay. So first off, if I tell a very basic view of the New Zealand economy. When we were in government, we had dairy, all other primary products, kiwi fruit, meat, everything else, and we had tourism. And for overseas students, and what happened with COVID is the tourism died, the overseas students didn't come back, and they're only just starting to come back now. And basically, we are very reliant on primary products. That is not the way to have a wealthy country that can afford to pay us to live in the lifestyle, or afford to give us a lifestyle that we've all become accustomed to. So we need to do something else. Now, the only reason that we are a mini giant in agriculture and primary products is because of science and technology, and the fact that New Zealand has been a very early adopter of science and investigator into it, and that is why we can do an awful lot that other people can't do in traditional farming markets or centres such as in Europe. So we've had to be innovative because our market was halfway around the world. Now our market's in the Northern Hemisphere, but a little bit closer, but still has challenges. And so we need to look for something else. And what should we do? Well, that's the only way we're going to do it. Israel's done it. Ireland's done it. We have to do it. We have to embrace science and technology, and not only technology, but science. And that is deep tech. We have huge advantages, and why wouldn't we take advantage of it? So that's what we've got to do. We cannot take our New Zealand economy and cut it up anymore and say someone's got something more than someone else, so therefore we'll give that to them. That's not going to work. What we have to do is grow the economy. There is no other way to do it. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. That's why I think it's important.
What do you think is the role of government in encouraging that technology innovation? What is it that, where do you see the connection?
Well, okay, so there are some things that normally I'd say governments are utterly useless and get in the way of things, but because I'm naturally more libertarian than some. However, the New Zealand government, when we were in government, made a very good decision around ultra-fast broadband. And of course, now the technology has moved on as well. And now we have things like Starlink helping to keep Ukraine on board and all these sorts of things. So the fact is, if we hadn't done that ultra-fast broadband during COVID, we would have shut down so much more than what we actually did. And we shut down an awful lot anyway. So that is useful, helping to bring infrastructure in place. The other thing is a regulatory role. So regulations don't always have to be about what you can't do. Quite often they can be about how to do something. So we did that as well with the space industry. So when Peter Beck from Rocket Lab first approached the government and said, this is what we want to do, I need a regulatory agency that can help me get things done and to enable space to be accessed from New Zealand. We thought, well, that's a big idea out there, but we did. And that has now proven to be, we're now, I think, about the 6th largest space country in the world, largest space country, which is extraordinary for a population of our size and given our history. Now, that's the sort of thing we do. And that is one of the things that I've brought into this coming election, is the harnessing biotech, enabling New Zealand scientists to be much more involved, not only in the lab, but actually in the field with gene editing, gene technology, and modern day CRISPR technology and all that comes from that. So why wouldn't New Zealand want to become a world leader in that? And we know we've got the scientists, we know we've got the technology, we just got to use it.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the challenges for New Zealand in that space?
Oh, look, which particular one?
Oh,
which particular space?
Well, generally innovation, technology,
I think.
Sorry,
Karen, I believe very firmly that whatever's your strength becomes your weakness, and whatever's your weakness, you should turn into a strength. And so we take something like New Zealand has been able to, and successive governments have been able to trot along and say, well, this is what we've got, we're doing pretty well. And that has actually been an enormous drain on people's motivation and innovation. Because why should you try to do better if you're already doing pretty well, really, and you're all quite happy? So in some ways, it's taken a crisis, several crises actually, to actually start to get people thinking, well, there's got to be something better here. And we know that we are exporting people on a scale, almost in the realm of Ireland of the 19th century, not quite there, but almost. And we need to be thinking about how do we bring people in who need to be here, who are going to be productive, add to our economy and to our way of life, and at the same time, give enough for New Zealanders to want to be here. Those who want to be productive, how can we do this? Because our productivity levels are low to deeply low, and we need to increase that, because we will not get to be a wealthier nation unless we can do that.
Yeah. Obviously,
so I'd say complacency is the worst thing we can do.
Yeah.
And making up excuses about why we can't do stuff.
Yeah. It's Josh and I have been having quite a few conversations both in New Zealand and in Israel around some of the similarities and differences in cultural elements, in ways of thinking, specifically around some of the challenges and opportunities. And as you said, that's there's a lot that can be, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. Josh could probably speak a little bit more to that. But I guess with the mission of this organization being around encouraging collaboration, encouraging trade, and encouraging learning, I don't know whether has there been any learning? Has there been any what's happened so far, and where do we see the opportunities around that learning from Israel, for example, but also other countries?
Well, I don't know if you know of Oren Gerstein, who's deeply involved in innovation in Israel, and he has been very, very helpful to me in helping to meld my thinking on it. And Sir Peter Gluckman is also a very good friend who has been very helpful in helping me see the possibilities. But if I look at Israel, and I use Israel as an example to people, other New Zealanders, about what can happen, I get every excuse in the world. I get the, well, big military, and I would also say, and Oren says quite clearly, well, and everyone has to go and serve in the military, and they stops them doing their PhD for another 2 years. So, you know, there's advantages and disadvantages in everything. Then I have people saying, oh, very close to the United States. And I say, yeah, and so are we. And by the way, we're very close to Asia. So where's your excuse again? And then there's something, you know, there's always something. And whatever, you know, I just can't stand this attitude of, we don't have to do anything. Or there's always an excuse and it's not good enough. And I look at the Irish, for instance. I mean, Ireland are a country mostly known for exporting people, a lot of rain, a lot of greenery, and a lot of myths and history, and always talking about their history. What happened there? Well, they decided they were not going to be poor anymore. And people will say to me, coming up with the excuses, oh, but they're part of the EU. And I say to them, so's Greece.
Yeah, why are people looking for reasons?
Not good enough. Not good enough. Yeah.
So, Josh, did you have some thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, being far away, it's sort of hard to see what's happening overseas. You know, like New Zealand almost has, you know, it's isolated. It's, you know, it's clearly isolated very far away from what's happening in Asia or Europe. But I think that's actually a reason to work harder, to make those overseas partnerships, to find out what's happening overseas, to bring back, you know, whether it's through Kia or through organizations like ours, to find out what's happening in Singapore, Estonia, and Ireland, and to work what's worked over there can be brought back to New Zealand and be adapted for our own context and needs. I'm sure of it.
There's no need for us to reinvent everything. That's the way I see it.
No need to do it.
We should borrow and steal other ideas. And what I've found with most nations is, if you're genuinely interested in how they're doing things and what they're doing, they're incredibly generous in sharing those ideas, because innovators love other innovators. And we know that whatever is technology today, don't worry, there's another one coming along. So it's not like there's any point getting too hung up about it, because someone else is going to come too. So it's, I've found, you know, looking outwards is where we need to be. And I just try to remind people occasionally is that New Zealand is where the very first refrigerator container was invented. For a very good reason. As Josh mentioned, we're a long way away from our markets. And so necessity brings about innovation, a need to innovate. Otherwise, you sort of die, really.
Yeah. And actually, New Zealand has really a lot to offer as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing what comes up through New Zealand. It's just, it doesn't make it. Maybe it gets to Australia. It really doesn't go beyond that. And so... Well,
it has to globalize. That's the other point.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've got from Oren as well. If it's not global, why are you doing it? It's not for a $5 million market.
Speaking to even, you know, startup companies here, and speaking to people coming across either from Israel, from the US, and the things that they've noticed in the difference in the cultural thinking. You speak to any Israeli who wants to start a startup, and they're already thinking about, how do I take over the world? That is just, that's where they start. That's their starting point. You're talking to most New Zealanders, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do really well in Christchurch, and then I'll move to Auckland, and then maybe maybe one day I'll, you know, move to Australia. And just that thinking isn't, that's where some of the advantages that we're seeing from a cultural perspective of like helping to the mindsets change and thinking about some of those.
That's right. And I think and yet we are so proud of other New Zealanders when they do so well overseas. And so we just need to give people permission to go out there and do what they need to do. And, you know, there are people who do think very much from globally. And the fact is, if deep tech, software, why wouldn't you look globally? And the fact is we are doing. I mean, I've heard people say to me, oh, you know, Xero's done really well. I mean, they're certainly one. Rocket Lab's another. They're all New Zealand companies. And even when they shift offshore somewhere else, they're still deeply immersed here and have helped and still do help startups and others in the industry and help to create that ecosystem that we have, but we need to also grow. And one of the big advantages in New Zealand that most people don't know about is our enormous footprint in terms of science and research. So people don't always appreciate that we have 5 million people here. Yes, we have another million overseas, but we have 8 universities, all of which are dedicated to research. Then we have 7 Crown Research Institutes. Then we have Callaghan Innovation and 18 separate industry research institutes. Now, we are researched everywhere. We can research on pretty much anything. And where we lack is the ability, expertise, the markets, the capital, the people to commercialize and go globally. And yet we have some already doing that, and we just need to get that capital in, get the right people in, and get those right markets.
Yeah. Is there any thoughts on how that can be done?
Oh, it's quite easy, really. I say that as in a joking way, but it isn't that
It'll be done
hard.
by 6 o'clock, yeah.
I mean, we've got a great reputation overseas. New Zealand has a huge advantage over our Australian cousins, as I say to them just jokingly, you know. And they sometimes think I really mean it. No one hates us. But also, we're used to dealing with people. We're very much a people place. I mean, we love dealing with people, and we're probably a bit soft. We take a long time to get to the point of the deal, what we're trying to get done. But we are known as generous people who are, you know, very focused on trying to do the right thing. So we have a good reputation, and that helps. But I think we sometimes undersell ourselves, and can we change that culture? Well, have you ever seen us when the All Blacks are playing? Of course we can. You know, we just have to remind ourselves that tech is great, science is fun, and we've got to be world leading in our areas. We don't have to entirely dominate the world. We just have to try to.
Nice. I just remind people we've got one question that's just come through. I'll be reading those in a minute, but just remind people, if you want to have some questions, do put them across. I've got lots more, but I don't want to take over the conversation.
Are you going to run the questions, Karen, or Josh? Someone's going to run those questions. You don't want me to answer.
Karen, do you want to go through the questions? We've got some pretty big ones over here.
It is it takes a while to read them.
Make them short.
Yeah, they've got some really long. They look like essays more than questions.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the first from Ayon. Do you think the government has a role to play in improving the level of competition here in NZ? And do you think that the bubble of lower competition that we operate in leads to lower productivity, efficiency, and stifles innovation to some extent? That's from Ayon.
Well, you know, the Commerce Act and the Commerce Commission are supposed to deal with anti-competitive behaviour, but let's be frank, we all know there's quite a bit of anti-competitive behaviour out there. One of our biggest problems is, of course, is that we don't have, a market is quite small, and you tend to end up with these inefficiencies because of it. I'd like to see the Commerce Commission look a little bit more at some of the behaviours that we've seen in some industries, particularly where they're dominated by 1 or 2 players. But the point is, really, we just need to understand this is not the market. New Zealand is not the market for tech and science. The world is the market. So do I think the government has a big role in trying to do that? I think they just need to help New Zealanders get more of their science overseas, get licensing fees back, or sell out, whatever it is. Just get that going, get people start making money on it, bringing in capital, and being able to reinvest in New Zealand. I mean, that's what I see from people. So I don't want to get hung up on it. 5 million people is an interesting market, but it's not the world.
What do you think are whether the government or systemic things that can be done to encourage more startups in New Zealand that can then go global?
Yeah, well, we have some policy obviously coming out very soon, but we've put some out, which is the regulatory system for biotech, to enable biotech. much better use of it here and overseas. So yes, there's some policy matters that we can deal with, but I'm not going to go into them now because number one, we're being recorded, and number two, we haven't announced it yet. So, but yeah, there's some things like actually celebrating success on it. And one of the best things we can do, we've got NZTE, New Zealand Training Enterprise. We've got the Kia group, which is our overseas New Zealanders who have wanted to come together to help the country. We've got champions already ready to be champions. We've got to give them permission to go out there and talk it up, and we've got to stop trying to think we just have to hide our light under the bushel as such. We've just got to get out there and be proud, brash, and just get off and do it. Learn something from our Aussie mates and our American mates and our Israeli mates, frankly. We've just got to get out there and do it, and then, cheer about it.
Okay, thanks for that. We've got another question here. This one's from Nigel. I guess you could call this your first curly question, although being the New Zealand Israel Innovation Hub, you shouldn't expect any less. Judith, this is from Nigel. Judith, with Israel being the innovation hub of the universe, it says here universe, but I think let's bring it down a notch.
Yes.
And the startup capital of the world, in government, would you support a New Zealand embassy in Israel? Foreign Minister Makali opened an embassy in Bogota when there was not much trade happening in Colombia. He justified it by saying the embassy would help develop more trade. Would you support the same principle regarding the opening of an embassy in Israel if you were in a position in government to do so?
Well, number one, I'm not the foreign affairs spokesperson, and number two, we're not in government. So those are the sorts of things that a government decides on, not me. But I am here to talk about tech and science, so let's do that one, or innovation. What I will say is that we have some pretty good links and connections through to Israel, and that is a very important part of, as obviously the only functioning liberal democracy in the space. It's very important that we continue those links and to grow them.
All right, fantastic. All right, from Dave, what strategies do you believe are crucial for fostering a culture of innovation and technical advancement within both government and private sectors? And how can we ensure these strategies lead to meaningful societal benefits?
Well, I just think that they're going to lead to meaningful societal benefits just by existing, frankly. So if we look at things like, for instance, STEM subjects, or sometimes people keep saying I should say STEAM because art's in there too. We've got to make sure that kids are at school. We've got to make sure that we use technology in the classroom better, that we actually enable teachers to be able to be free to do their bit that they need to do and let the kids use technology to help them achieve what they need to achieve. So that's really important. What else? Well, we have to celebrate success. It's so important. And we have to understand that we cannot just continue on with the same economic story that we've had for the last 40 years and think it's all going to be fine, swimmingly fine, and no one's going to worry about us. Well, they are, and we need to do exactly the same as what we've done in the past, which is to learn to innovate and just not to make excuses. So we need good people. Do we need immigration? Yes, we do. And I'm not the immigration spokesperson. Of course, those policies are still to come. But let me tell you that do we need the right immigration? Yes. And the right immigration is innovative, wanting to work, wanting to learn, being part of a cohesive society. All of these things are important. But the other thing is that great people often bring capital. And if they don't bring capital, they often bring markets, connections, and all of these things. I look at the countries and the economies in the world that have grown and which are exciting to be in, and they're all countries with immigration. That is important. You've got to have it. Immigrants, to me, are great. They bring drive, courage, and determination. And when I look at people who come to New Zealand, and my own ancestors in some cases, who came with no English or very little English at all, look at what they've done look what they did. What they didn't do is sit around complaining all day, expecting the government to do anything for them. They got up and got to work. And that's what I'd love to see.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you for that answer. Moving along, Alex has a question. With the complacent agriculture sector accounting for about 48% of New Zealand's emissions and about 30% of GDP, Israeli food technology holds the keys to accelerate this transition. However, investors are less interested as the IP isn't solely owned by New Zealand companies. Building on Peter Beck's story about creating a regulatory environment and your legal opinion on how we can reduce investor worries about not having, maybe this is a question actually. What is your opinion on how we can reduce investors' worries about not having full ownership on the IP, or can we pave the way for better technology sharing? That's the question.
We normally call that a speech. But anyway, now, number one, I'm going to disagree with you. The agricultural sector in New Zealand is not complacent. It is unbelievably productive compared to its alternatives. So, not taking that rubbish from anyone. It's one that has been able to, it is very carbon efficient compared to any other producers, which is why we could get a leg of Canterbury lamb from New Zealand on a table in London cheaper in terms of carbon emissions than they can buying it down the road from the local farmer out of London, obviously. So that is actually just not acceptable. Secondly, New Zealand government has not enabled New Zealand farmers to deal with emissions using science, such as ryegrasses and the science that's already going on here. That's why the biotech regulator is really important, so that we can give farmers the tools that they need. I'm not going to be part of a government that tells farmers to go and kill our cows on the basis that we need to save the world. No, it won't. It just means that countries such as China and others are going to take up that instead, and they are not going to be nearly as carbon efficient as New Zealand is. So no, we give farmers a tool and we celebrate their success. They're about the only people who have been paying the bills for us recently. So let's not be silly about it. Now, what was the other question? I'm so excited about that one.
I have to scroll all the way back up. Look, I think that answers this question.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't you beg our farmers. I won't let that happen.
No, but we're glad to say we've got a reporter joining us, Peter Griffin from Business Desk. Another curly question coming right up. Can you please give us your assessment of Labor's policies and progress in the digital economy and tech space over here in the last 6 years? What have they done well and what areas have they failed to deliver in?
Well, they wrote a report and I think that's lovely. But to be frank, they haven't done much, have they? I think that's good that when they came into government, they were talking about the digital economy, and that was a good thing to talk about it, but then they needed to actually deliver on it. So one of the things that we could do is to digitise government significantly more than what it is at the moment. So that's why we have a portfolio, again, the only party one for one, called Digitising Government. And that is about accepting that most of us do a lot of our business now online, on our phones actually, not even on the laptops. So how can we make most government services accessible, usable, coming back in real time from our phones? So that's what I've been in New South Wales, where they have done that to a significant degree, not for everything, but a significant degree. And so I've been talking to them about how we could use what they've done to help us to bring that about. So the other thing to remember is that government is a big spender when it comes to technology, but not much of it goes anywhere near New Zealand or innovators. It's almost all big offshore. By the time anything gets done, it's often a bit late and things have moved on. So I would like to see much more of an innovative approach taken to budget bids by government, but also to have much more of a seamless service between government agencies, so that people who have to deal with government don't have to keep repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. And actually it's there for the people. It should be there for the people, not the other way around. If you ever tried to contact a human at a government agency? Just checking. No.
Corinne, do you want to ask, like, is there any question you have here that?
As I said, I've got a list, but I just following up from what you were just saying, Judith, because I heard the interview where you were talking about that, and in that same interview, you also talked about setting up a cross-party
Yes.
MP group to talk about AI.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that. And
right. So after the Christmas break, I decided we'd have a cross-party group on AI. Why? Because obviously AI was coming to the fore in terms of publicity, and a lot of people worried, and others saying it was the, it's the end of the world. Others, it's the savior of the world. So, it was like, so I thought, why don't we look at this from a cross-party point of view? Because in order to digitize government, we need to be able to use AI in a very sensible and obviously ethical manner. And people are very concerned about their data and their privacy, and we need to take that very seriously. And we supported the current government's moves on data privacy. About 2 years ago, we supported that as well. So I thought it's probably best if we look at and listen to people who are actually experts in AI and try and form some sort of views, maybe not policy, but at least some understanding. Also last year, I was asked to go on the board of the NAUI Institute, which is the Natural Artificial Organizational Intelligence Institute at the Auckland University, and on an advisory board. So I was thinking, that's where we need to get this out there. So I put out an email to non-executive members of Parliament. These are not the ministers, because then they'll go take it down departments and nothing will happen. So I got them together, and we've had a few meetings. We've had experts. Last one was at the US Embassy last week, where we had people from Microsoft, the State Department and Tech, and a couple of others from Auckland University, and also Victoria University, talking to us about some of the applications in AI, some of the concerns that we have to be aware of, and also some of the dangers of and how we should be looking at what else is happening overseas, but also the huge advantages. And I've seen AI being used in healthcare already, and just some extraordinary breakthroughs that are happening through that. So that's what I thought we'd do, and it seems to be going really well, and we haven't had an argument.
That's a good start.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to reinvent the world. I'm not trying to come up with joint policy, which would always be a problem, but just to better inform ourselves and to feel it's okay to ask questions.
What would be your definition of success? So when you look back on this initiative, what would make you feel, yep, that was successful in what I wanted to achieve?
It's already successful, because we've got a group cross-party who are listening to experts and coming along and asking questions and then chatting about it. And we're thinking about what needs to be done, if anything, in terms of how we approach the use of AI, particularly by government, because some of us are quite used to it being used in business and social media, but it's the use of it by government agencies, how that needs to be looked at. What are the opportunities to use it better? But then again, how do we make it use ethical, and how do we protect people's digital or their data, frankly? And that's really important. So the New South Wales people are doing it, I think, doing it very well. But also the other thing is cybersecurity. The fact that it can be used obviously in a good or a bad way when it comes to cybersecurity. So these are some of the opportunities. I'd like to have this a very non-partisan thing in Parliament, a bit like reading and writing. Do you read or write? Just so that, because it's like trying to regulate physics. It's the use of physics you've got to maybe think about, but certainly not the physics itself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a lot in Israel that can be helpful around the cybersecurity and all of some of these other things that that you mentioned. I saw a question that I'm interested in the questions. Just, was there anything else?
Well, I'm really interested. I mean, the policy that you came up with about genetic modification, I think that was fantastic that you came out and said you're removing the ban on that, because that has wide implications across many sectors, whether it's agriculture or biotech or whatever. I'd love to hear more about how you came up with that policy, who you spoke to develop it, and where you think, what's your opinion on where you think it would, who you think it could benefit?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Josh, I went around everywhere. I've been going around the country talking to scientists everywhere, obviously, and tech people. And I've been asking them, what can we do to cut our greenhouse gas emissions, deal with our climate change issues without destroying our economy? How can we do this? And the answer kept coming back to me, which was like, and also, how can we use fewer pesticides? How can we have waterways? And, you know, what's the answer? It all came back to give us the ability to take the technology we've already developed in the labs and to use it. Actually trial it outside even and use it. But the scientists would say to me, but you'll never get it through. No one will like this. This will be terrible. And of course, scientists talk to other scientists, so they all start thinking the same. And they've had 20 years of being told they can't do anything. So they thought that. But when I looked at what was happening in Australia, like they developed a specialist biotech regulator. They call theirs gene technology regulator, about 2 years ago. And the world has not stopped turning there. In fact, what's happened is that they've got some of our biotech people have moved to Australia because of it. The UK is moving to very few regulations whatsoever. The US has apparently never really had any regulations on it. And so everyone's sucking on their soy lattes, thinking that they're saving the world and stopping this GE, and it's all GE'd. So it's like, it's really important that we understand the world has moved on from 20 years ago, and particularly after CRISPR technology. So I came back, I talked about it with our team, and I said, this is a bonus for agriculture, absolute bonus, and horticulture, but it's also a real bonus in terms of medicine and health in particular. So what I found out a lot more about it, and essentially there is only one animal GE'd product that's available in New Zealand, able to be used, made in New Zealand, available, and that is a horse vaccine. That's it. And when it comes to humans, there are some trials. There's about 9-10 trials at the moment, particularly the CAR T cell cancer therapy trial that's happening at Mulligan Institute and Victoria University. That's basically taking your cells, doing a bit of a zhuzh on it, and putting them back in to fight the cancer in your body. I mean, that's unbelievably wonderful. If that can come through and be available to everyone. That's the sort of thing available. So what we found out is nothing was being allowed in agriculture. A few trials were being allowed in health, but all these scientists were just champing at the bit to actually try to get this stuff. So ryegrass, Landcare in Lincoln, in the South Island, developed this ryegrass, which they believed could save methane emissions by up to 23%. They couldn't trial it outside a lab, so it went to the States to be trialed, and then when Australia opened up their biotech, then it's now trialed in Australia. They think maybe 17% reduction now, but that's still significantly more than anyone else. And that's the sort of thing which is not going to be overnight, but it's really important. Another thing is, in New Zealand, we've got all these wildling pines all over the place, ruining beautiful, pristine environment.
Yeah.
Well, Scion, a Crown Research Institute based in Rotorua, has discovered a way to actually grow a non-fertile pine, which means it's pine needles and everything else are not going, it's pine cones, are not going to go around creating wildling pines everywhere. And the foresters, they want to use this. And Scion's not allowed to take it out of a lab. So it's the sort of thing that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And just, I mean,
we're not talking about cloning humans anymore. We're just talking about, people probably think of genetic modification. The imagination goes wild.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, it's no longer, talking exactly Dolly, the cloned sheep, is it? It's actually taking the CRISPR technology, which is taking a gene, doing a tweak, and then there we go. So things like stomach cancer, which is often a genetic disposition for it, and we know families where people die in their 50s of stomach cancer, or they have to have their stomachs out. That's the sort of awful genetic illness that could be, presumably, is something where someone's going to be able to find that solution because it's genetic. Wouldn't that be wonderful if it was here?
All right. Corinne, I've got another question. I'm just reading some of these questions over here. I'll read the next one. Or do you want to go?
I was going to go to the one from Liam. Did you want to?
Okay.
Oh, which one were you
I was
going to
say Liam as well. Yeah, Liam's a good question.
Okay. Should I read that? Okay. So, New Zealand has regional providers giving newly formed tech companies the best start with incubators, accelerators, and community. Unfortunately, they aren't funded nearly enough to deliver these innovators, and many may not survive the next couple of years. What, in your opinion, what should government be doing to support tech companies from inception through to being able to stand on their own 2 feet?
Well, we have, as you say, regional tech hubs all over the country, and we have where there's not much mass, and it does actually become a bit of a challenge. I think there's some things we could do around the tech companies, and again, I can't say what that is today because we have a tech release coming before the election. But what I can say to you is this: one of the best ways for us to support startups is for other startups to be able to scale up and then to start investing as well. And that's what we're seeing. So if I look at a business like Lanza, which went offshore, I mean, these people have been able to discover a way to actually get rid of pollution, all sorts of things that they can do, but they need biotech regs to allow it to happen. They've gone to the US. They're actually, people who own that seem to be investing a lot in New Zealand. And you see a lot of people doing that, successful entrepreneurs coming back, investing here, looking for the next scale up, but also understanding that they're growing the ecosystem. It's not, I mean, I think government money is always a two-edged sword. If you get private money, it's often cheaper, even if you're paying for it by shares, because you're going to probably get a lot more than just money. You're getting often expertise, you're getting contacts, and you're getting markets. And that's something that governments struggle with, certainly government agencies. But we've got NZTE, as I said before, Trade and Enterprise, and they seem to be doing a really good job helping people to get offshore. But in terms of what else we can do, well, there's all sorts of things we could do. But if I tell you, one of the three things are always capital, people, and markets, and we could help with those.
Thank you. There's a related question here around around areas. So do you think we should narrow our focus to, say, ag tech and health tech around a single region where there's access to academics, research, processing power, human resources funding, rather than have a fragmented tech industry across the whole country? So this mirrors sort of Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv approach, where you've got it all. So we were talking earlier about regional support, and is there something around that space that you think would be
well, I mean, it's a really sensible question. I mean, New Zealand is physically larger than the United Kingdom. We just happen to be population smaller than Melbourne. So we have people who want to live in different places. Do I think in today's world I should be telling them where they live? No, I do not. I do think that there is a natural ability to build that ecosystem where you have enough people and enough inventors, enough scientists, tech people, and capital to make it happen. So there are some already around the country, Tauranga and Hamilton and Ruakura, really particularly around agriculture, Canterbury region, Queenstown, Wellington. I mean, there's Auckland, obviously, Palmerston North. There are several hubs, and the point is, what's the point of sticking them all in one place when people don't want to necessarily live there? I think we let people work it out for themselves, what works for them, but they need to understand that you need the markets, the capital, and you need the people. And if you don't have that, it's hard to scale up. But I'm not a bossy boots minister. I just want them, when we're in government, I'm not like that. I just want them to get on and make some sensible decisions. But getting out to see the world is a really good start, because then they get to know that the world is actually not their region.
Did you receive the had a look at the Global Entrepreneurship Map?
Sorry,
did you have a look at the Global Entrepreneurship Network Manifesto by any chance? Did that come across your desk where they?
It did not indeed. No, it did not. I'm sorry to say.
I'll have to get Dave to send it over to you.
It probably is there somewhere. I'll be there tomorrow. We'll have a look. But no, but just thinking globally, I mean, this is one of the points that's been made, isn't it? Is there's no point wanting to be the best in Christchurch, and you might move to Auckland, or the best in Auckland, and you might move to Sydney. You've got to want to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're coming up. Oh, sorry, go on.
I just feel like Dennis, our sponsor, he's a recruiter.
Yeah, he should ask something.
Yeah, I feel like he should be able to ask a question. I mean, it's relevant to immigration and the tech sectors. He's bringing people from overseas to work in tech. Dennis, do you have anything to say or mention or question?
Well, no, just I guess a general comment is that there are, in fact, sectors that are doing really well, and also there are niche sectors that require niche specialists. And often, as a country, we can't compete with such countries as the US on salary, and we have to attract them, I guess, on a country value proposition. This could be a lifestyle, political system. But I guess what really helps is the ability for these people to come to New Zealand, settle in quickly, eventually bring families. Otherwise, New Zealand becomes, I guess, a place for empty nesters who want, reach a certain level of career, have their kids leave home, and then they want to relocate, to work the last maybe remaining decade of their life in New Zealand. It would be great to make New Zealand competitive for young specialists as well. I think that would be my general comment.
I think that's a really good comment, and obviously you should get the idea from what I've said is that I think so too. I'm all for retirement homes and villages. I just don't want the entire country to be one.
Yeah.
But we also, to be frank, we're competing with every other country, and so as you rightly say, we have beautiful surroundings. We have, we have the ability to get to courts. We have, basically zero corruption, zero tolerance of corruption. We are a good place for people to be, but we need to be have a smarter understanding that these people that we're after, they can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And we've got to be better than that.
Yeah. I feel like, go on, Corinne.
No, I was just going to...
keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
I think we're going to need to bring it to a close soon. I was just going to say, Judith, obviously very brave doing an AMA. Was there a question that you were hoping will come up so that you can, is there anything that you were hoping to talk about that you would like us to ask you before we close?
Well, I think one of the things you might want to ask me, but I'm going to do it for you, is, why tech and stuff? Well, I've already said that, but why me in it? It's because I'm the most passionate person you can find for it. But also, what I found is fascinating in the tech and science worlds is that there are opportunities for everybody. You don't have to be a scientist to be in science. You can be a marketer. You can be all sorts of things. You can be a financial advisor. You can be all these sorts of things, a lawyer. There are opportunities in these sectors that are way past being technically efficient and competent. And that's what people don't always realize. They think the tech sector is people who, like my son, who can code and that. Yes, but it's also a lot of other people. There's got to be someone to commercialize. And I think that's one of the big things is, how do we take this understanding? And I try and do it wherever I go, is that it's no good being the very best in your computer world if you haven't got someone who can help you commercialize it, export it, get it out. It takes a whole, dare I say it, village to do it. You need to be able to get a lot of people involved, and you don't have to be the expert on everything.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Thank you very, very much. Any last thoughts from anybody before we sort of close off? I think that was pretty inspiring ending.
I feel like I just want to say, I just got a request. Can I make a request?
Mm-hmm.
My request is to lift R&D up as a percentage of GDP, so it's not the lowest in the OECD. Can we get that actually, like, even halfway to the Israelis would be like a huge improvement. Like, what, we're running at like 1.
Well, wouldn't that be? And I think, we do a lot of R.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? We do not so much D. So that's where I can help you once we get into government. We need to get that, and just always remember that wonderful example of GlaxoSmithKline. You know Glaxo?
Yeah.
Started in Bunnythorpe in New Zealand.
Yep.
Between Feilding and Palmerston North.
There you go.
The first vitamin D that they produced. And then they went offshore to the UK for the same reasons: capital, people, and markets. Let's not do it to the rest of us. Let's make sure we keep some of it here.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Judith.